Welcome everyone. Welcome to Race Talk with Lane and Eugene. We are very excited to have you here today. We're going to do a brief recap of what we talked about last week, the economy of racism, and then Reverend Eugene is going to lead us in a conversation about how we can make a bigger impact in that area or all of those areas that we're going to just recap. I am an interfaith minister and a holistic life and business coach, and I'm not going to spend a long time introducing myself, and just know that this conversation and project is a labor of love. Eugene and I spoke about giving people a platform in which they can be educated and self-expressed, and we are happy that you are here. Eugene, please.
Yes. I'm just wanting to make sure that everybody's name has been corrected. It looks like it has. Great. Just a real quick, recap of what we've been talking about. As Lane mentioned, we talked about, the first week was the psychology of racism and all that implied. The economy of racism. We spoke a little bit about white fragility and all of that. And so this week, what I want to talk about is to open up the floor, because we know that there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now, and there's a lot of information in terms of the systematic institution of racism, when it was started, why it was started, how it was started, and it appears to be a really big thing, right? Well, that's what it appears like. And so what I want to talk about, I want to open up the floor with everybody so that we can talk about, okay, so where are we and where do we want to go? What do you see your role is in helping to facilitate a healing, just even in your own sphere of the world? Because for me, getting all of the information is good. But then for me, it's like, okay, so what do I do with this? How do I show up? One of the questions, there are two questions, and I've been speaking about this throughout the year, maybe 2 years, because we hear, what is mine to do? And that's a great question. That's a great question. But for me, and this is just for me, my first question is, who am I to be in this? Who am I to be in this? And when I really tap into who I am and how, then that informs what is mine to do. So what I want to do is to open it up, right? And what I want you to speak about, I want you to speak from your own personal experiences of what you've learned as a participant here in Race Talk. And then if you would then also speak about, what can you see, what do you see is yours to do? How can you show up? Now, one of the things that Relaine and I always say, or we try to say this, is that we want to keep the conversation civil. We're not here to make anyone wrong. What Race Talk is about providing a platform where your voice can be heard. One of the things that I know to be the truth is that with all of us working collectively, then we can start seeing little small steps of change.
So let me just
with
briefly,
that being said,
let me just briefly remind people, because there were people here that did miss last week. So in that economy of racism, we talked about how the different systems were intertwined, and the real common, really what the way to subject or make people subservient, right, is to take away economic means. And so anything that can give people that economic means is often then diminished. And that is what has happened over time here in the United States, starting with slavery, using Black bodies to build wealth in the white community and across the Americas with great success, and then continuing to subject Black people into after emancipation and just all through these years, I'm not gonna belabor this, but all through these years that you continue to see that the educational system has not been properly funded in areas where Black people mostly live, poor people live, right? The jobs have not been available. Black people and poor people are generally relegated to the lower paying jobs. The fiscal policies, we have not funded the infrastructure to rebuild a lot of these communities. Redlining. So when GIs came back from the war, they could not move their families into these suburban neighborhoods because it was an official policy. Redlining kept Black people out of those neighborhoods. And so Black people have been deprived of the ability to pass on wealth to their families, all right? Because we know that a house or real estate never loses its value for the most part. And the police state, the justice system, how it is cheaper, actually, it's cheaper for the government to keep someone in prison than it is to overhaul the social welfare system, if you can believe that, right? So I've read this numerous times. It is much, much cheaper to keep someone in prison than it is to actually redesign and fund the systems that would be necessary to actually shift this balance. And so what we ended up talking about was the possibility that the real thing that needs to happen in order for anything to change permanently in the area of systemic racism specifically, since that's what we're talking about, is a redistribution of wealth. A redistribution of wealth. So you hear people talking about reparations. I think someone talked about Asheville, North Carolina, and I think there's some other state that has, that is putting aside some money to, so like that. So we want to talk about specifically maybe how you feel about those things go together, but also what Eugene said, just in general, what are you learning? And with that information, what do you feel is yours to do? So thank you, Eugene, for letting me back up a little bit.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for that. Just real fast, for those who, when you're looking at your screen and your name is Lane Cobb, I'm going to have you change that by taking your cursor up to the very right-hand corner of your square, hitting the three little dots there, and there's a drop down, select rename, and then put in your name so that we know who's up. And for those of you who are on your video mute, take yourself off of mute. We would love to see your beautiful face. So let's dive in.
Off of it, okay. All right. And if you want to unmute your phone, by the way, you can hit *6 if you're on your phone.
Okay. Yes, Carol.
One thing that we have found is a report just came out today called, an organization called Diversity Data Kids released a study on child opportunity. And my city, Rochester, New York, is the highest gap of the widest child opportunity gap in the metro area, which means the difference in opportunity scores between highest and lowest neighborhoods. So we are described as hoarders with lots of resources, but tremendous inequality in Rochester. And we are also talking now about defunding the police department. sure you've seen the news about Daniel Prude, and that is my city and Elaine's city. And so there's lots of talk about restructuring things, and hopefully something will come of it. And the what is mine to do part is, you know, as a 63-year-old person with a really bad knee, I am really angry that I'm not out there marching every night with my friends. But a few times I've filled the back of my car with cases of bottles of water, and I take that down there, and I can contribute to the group that supplies medics to the protesters. I mean, there's things you can do even if you can't do the things you want to be doing.
Great.
Thank you, Carol. You know, and I understand, I understand the way you feel, being upset that you can't, you know, I love this actually, that you're upset that you can't be out there marching, but that doesn't stop you from showing up in different ways. I wrote down a question for you. How do you feel about what's going on? But you've already said. So, but let me ask you though, Carol, if you don't mind. So I know that you're upset that you can't be out there marching, but how do you feel about how everything else is going on? And I'm so glad that you do what you do. And how do you feel about everything that's going on?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for Elaine, but we belong to an anti-racism group sponsored by our church, and we're working on community funding in an area where at some point there will be a civil rights heritage park. Right now, our pastor has put church elders kind of as a buffer between the police and the protesters, not that they can't protect themselves, but just to kind of keep things calm. The protests have been really peaceful the last 3 nights. The police thinks they're kind of a military organization. They backed 100 people into our church, and there's pictures of pepper ball pellets, like they shot at our church. Like, who shoots at a church? So yeah, it is frustrating, but you know, like I said, there are things that we could do. And I've also figured out, usually the people start at a certain place and go to the public safety building. If I can find a good place to park, I can meet them at the public safety building. So I might be able to march anyway. But the protesting has done some work. The police chief and his 7 highest group have all just resigned. So things may change.
Eugene, can I jump in just a moment? I want to make sure that the people who are new to Race Talk at Lane and Eugene, please speak up. We want to hear your voice. There are some of us who have spoken in the past sessions. Please do us the honor of sharing your thoughts here as well.
And then also what I want to remind us is when we are sharing, to speak about, you know, like I and me and I, and then also we want to try to keep this down to 2 minutes, even though I did ask Carol an additional question. But okay, all righty. Who else?
I see.
Let's go with Gloria.
I realized I didn't even say, I've been a practitioner with religious science for, I don't know, a lot of years. Well, since 1983 is when I was first licensed. And I have been having a really difficult time putting my voice in the room.
Mm.
And so I'm qualifying what I'm saying right now to let you know that. And this format is exactly what I needed to just hear how people do that. Because what I do, sometimes I write lots and lots and lots of things that I wish I could say. And this morning, someone posted I don't think that is appropriate to be on this website, da 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 kind of thing. And every time that happens, I wonder why does the person think that person doesn't have a voice? I mean, shouldn't be there, or is questioning them. And I didn't respond again. So I'm here now to keep listening and getting more, because I am going to respond. And in the listserv that we're on, I can respond to, and which I do often. I do respond to the person without responding in the whole group. So I'm just wanted to tell you that much more about me. And as I told them before, my screen goes black, it's either interference are coming in, and I can still hear you if I turn it off, and you won't hear the noise on my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for being here, and thank you for us allowing us to hear your voice. I know you have a lot to say. Vicki Hunt.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for this platform. My family is multiracial. I have nieces and nephews, sisters and brothers and everything from black and white. And we're having a Zoom conversation every week just with family members to hear how the young folk, the old folk, and those in between have seen racism, because it's not something that you talk within your family. So now we're having these conversations, and we're getting some very good advice from the young folk that's on Facebook and knows all the technology and everything. And it's really exciting because we never talked about it, because it was never a conversation about racism and what happened years and years and years ago. So now we're hearing what our nieces, nephews, and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren have gone through, which we've never heard before. And now we're talking about what is it that we can do, because we're such a multiracial family. My youngest brother is married to a young lady from New Zealand, and they travel back and forth. And we have interracial nieces and nephews. So what is mine to do is just to keep finding out and working on how racism has affected the generations and how it's affecting them now. We have nephews and things that are in prison for small things, but have to serve long prison terms. So what is it we can do as a family in this area to stop the racism? So we're doing these Zoom meetings just in our family, no outsiders, and it's really become huge. It's like 34, and that we haven't heard from in years, but they're getting on the Zoom thing. So what is mine to do is keep them talking, good, find out and learn how to use these computers so that I can so that I can Facebook, Twitter, tweet, whatever those things are called, to make my voice heard. Because my thing is, I was criticized as a kid because all my friends were different races. I was criticized from the Black families, I was criticized from the Hispanic families, and I was criticized from the white families. Why do you want to be over there with them? Why do you want to go there? Why are you eating that? And see, it always hurt me that people were like this, and I felt outside of everyone else, so I just went within. But now I don't. I make my voice heard.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks.
Eugene, I saw Faith Woods raise her hand a few
Okay.
minutes ago. Is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, she's calling somebody.
Thank you, thank you. It is my first time here. Jen Fay invited me. I'm so glad she did. I get really sad when I hear what's happening because I didn't know it was happening. My parents raised me the best way they could. I always thought I was a very kind person and not racist in any way. So it's taken me a while to wake up to the ideas of privileges that I have simply because of my skin color. It makes me sad and confused when people are unwilling to talk about this because they are so angry, or that's the feeling I get if I approach it and they're unwilling to look at anything beyond what they think they know because they're not privileged. It makes me sad. And so part of my job is part of mine to do is to keep asking questions that may provide an opening for them. But I'm still finding out about myself, and it's quite a journey. It's quite a journey because I just didn't realize when you don't know what you don't know, you just don't know it. And you have to move forward with what you have. So I am not a fan of email and Facebook too much because I find people can really be mean and ugly on those systems because they don't have to look me in the eye to say anything, or I don't have to look you in the eye to say anything. And they say things that they might not say if we were face to face. So this is much preferable to me than using those means. And I've recently become a fan of Sharif Abdullah. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he has a little 3-minute YouTube that is so rich when he talks about how we are linked. And if we realize our humanity and how we are all linked together, then we treat each other differently. So I'm remembering not just am I linked to each one of you because of humanity, but I'm linked to the whole world and the whole earth. And we have a lot of stuff to do. And I think I'm complete. Thank you.
Could I just ask if Faith could put the name of the man you just mentioned, someone Abdullah? If you could put that in the chat. Thank you.
Felicia, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to somebody had their hand up. Where did he
Mr.
go?
Riley had his hand up. Yeah, Mr. Riley.
So Felicia, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thanks so much for this opportunity to be in this forum. I do a lot of teaching of others, and sometimes it's just so wonderful to just stop and listen and be a part of things. And Vicki, as you were talking, I so related to the experience of growing up being the Black girl who wasn't Black enough, but I definitely wasn't white with the white folks. And the question of who am I to be really has me stop and pause and look at who have I been up until now. And I really see myself as a bridge between two worlds that other people see as separate. You know, I was also the one who had the white friends, and when they would come into my neighborhood, people would point and say, "Oh, you must be going to Felicia's house." And I currently am a global training director for a global nonprofit organization that's primarily white. And for the last many years, it's been my responsibility to try to coach and teach and educate and help our organization live into our mission statement, which is about creating a world of love and acceptance. And so I find myself personally dealing with feelings of anger and frustration and despair. Is it ever going to change? At the same time, my spiritual principles are reminding me of our oneness. And I feel like what's mine to do is to continue to stand in the gap. And what feels good to me is I'm finally realizing I'm not the only one standing in that gap, that there are others of all colors, all denominations, all nationalities, all abilities, and we're waking up at the same time to link arms and do something different. So this is really encouraging to me. I also teach a course at Stanford, and I'd been away from academia for a long time and came back. And when I came back, to hear 20-year-old students, Black students, describing their experience on campus and having it be the same as my experience on campus was 30 years ago, is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And at the same time, it gives me faith and courage that I have to continue showing up and being a model of a different possibility and standing in the gap. So that's what's mine to do. And it's really, really helpful to be reminded that I'm not alone.
Great.
Thank you.
Felicia, thank you so much. Lane, Felicia is the one that I had mentioned to you about a week or so ago.
Indeed, yes.
There are a couple of good resources that have been put into the chat there. Raymond Anderson, to everyone, has put a website for Sharif Abdullah. So Miles, Mr. Riley.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I really appreciate the comments from Vicki and Felicia in particular. I'm the youngest of 8 from a very large family, and there are many generations now. And talking about when I was, my parents were both immigrants, but we were very much all white. And in recent years, that has changed. And the thing that's kind of blown me away, 2 things is, number one, when I look at my nieces and nephews' children that are now, you know, some of them are in high school age and going into college, and how they don't look at things at all the same way I did when I was a kid. And that really blows me away. So that gives me some hope, or I shouldn't say the way I thought as a kid. So let me rephrase that. The way I saw it was. And that kind of blows me away and gives me some kind of hope, because this time frame has been very frustrating for me. The Black Lives Matter movement, which I support, reminds me very much of an organization I belonged to when I was younger called ACT UP, which was an AIDS organization during the height of the AIDS crisis. And so going to what you said about what can I do? How can I go out there and within my community make change or talk to people? And I found it very interesting in those days that when I was just myself and I had no agenda other than just see who I was, it put a face on that movement that many of my coworkers and friends were like, oh, I didn't know somebody. I didn't think I knew somebody like that. And they saw that I was no different. And that's what I'm trying to do with this now, specifically because of what Felicia said and Vicki, is it amazes me that people don't get what systemic racism means. I work in real estate. You talked about redlining, and that's against the law now. However, with that said, there are plenty of people in the real estate community that will still say, oh, that's the wrong neighborhood, you know? And although we're taught not to do that, it still happens. And it's quite frustrating. So I think the more we could, oh, and then the last thing I'll put is I was having an open house pre-COVID, and this young girl came in. She was on a jog and she wanted to see the house, and she was Black. And we became friends. And she said, I couldn't get over how nice you were to me. Because usually when I walk into open houses, people aren't so nice. And I said, but you were so nice when you walked in, you know? And that's what I'm talking about when I said, when you put a face on it, that's different than a perceived systemic situation. I think that's how it's going to change. Also, people wanting it to change. That's the other big part of it. Anyway, that's hearing Vicki talk and Felicia made me think of those things, because I have days where it's so frustrating and I think, oh my God, it's 2020, it's never going to change. But it has changed, but I can't believe how much it hasn't. So, you know, we can't give up, you know, we can't give up.
Miles, thank you so very much. And it's because of doing things like Race Talk and families coming together and doing Zoom and people speaking, you know, that help to facilitate the change. You know, I am reminded of what Trevor Noah said, you know, a while ago. He says, you know, why is it so hard for people in the USA to talk about race? You know, and when we don't talk about it, then when we don't have a conversation, you know, I believe that conversation, talking about it, is the first step to some kind of a change. Yeah.
Eugene, can I recognize, I saw James Cobb waving his hand furiously at the screen. So can we go to him?
Well, I don't know exactly how to do this, really, but I heard your last statement as the answer to be economic equality. And I just want to put in my little bit on economic equality. How is economic equality to be accomplished? I think it must go much beyond reparations and money payoff. I don't think there's enough money in the country to pay for 250 years of slavery. Okay, and I don't want the conservative people and the Trumpistas to think, well, we paid them off, so we have to stop thinking about this. This is something that has to go on. I think reducing the cost of education, integrating education, which is happening. I just read an article about Texas A&M, which when I was a young man was everybody that I knew with the Texas A&M was, in my estimation, a redneck. Okay, this is the way they behaved. This is the way they talked. I knew a lot of them when I was in the Army. Now, 1 in 3 students at Texas A&M is of color, which is a tremendous change. And this is happening all over the country. And promoting this sort of thing is a path to economic equality. I don't think what we call reparations, per se, is a viable way. All right, it has to be much more creative than that. And I just wanted to compliment Felicia and the last commentator. I really liked hearing what she said. I thought it was tremendous. And thank you very much, Felicia. And what was the last guy's name? Craig? Okay. Thank you too.
Miles, that was Miles.
Miles, okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a time for a couple more. Yes, Grace.
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Linden. I've been on these calls a couple of weeks now. Really appreciate them, Lane and Eugene. Responding to the question from Eugene about what to do. So I'm still in the learning mode, very much so, like Faith mentioned. Really, this is not a hard climb emotionally, but I just realized how much I don't know. On the 13th recently, looking at other resources, having other conversations. I participated in the Braver Angels discussion about Trump and the Black population. It was very interesting last Thursday. I'm about to retire, which I'm excited about. And when you choose to retire, it means you've got the financial means to do so. So what I'm learning now is what I might do. I think Elaine rather, you're correct. We need to readjust the resources, the availability of resources to people of color, communities of color, and individuals who have been subjugated to our financial challenges and barriers that we've put up as a society. So I'm beginning to raise money, learn about where I might make a difference. And my intention is to give out millions of dollars in the coming years. I don't know where and to whom, but it's exciting. I'm playing the stock market, not for me, because I don't need the money. I'm retiring. But I'm excited about using my white privilege. I'm buying lottery tickets every week. And again, it's to build a war chest and to partner with other people and see what we could do. So, but the other thing real quick before my time is out is just the individual person to person changes is really what I've been lacking, quite frankly. And I want to do much better and reach out, be interested, talk more and more to people who are more diverse than I am, you know, expand my social circle. So it's that two-prong approach I'd like to take in the learning mode that I'm in now. So thanks for letting me talk.
Beautiful. Eugene, let me just say that Jen Fay would like to speak. She said me in the chat room. You did? Okay, thank you. Thank you, love.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So, couple things. I don't know if people saw the Bloomberg from New York. You know, he was a presidential candidate for a while. That he just donated, I think it was 32 million to higher education, medical schools that these are scholarships going to Black students, which I thought that was a good approach. I'd be curious to see what you all think about that.
It was 100 million.
100 million? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. I'm not good at numbers. And the other thing that the posting about the action on the practitioners listserv in regards to defunding the police and the action that people can take, and someone said that was saying that's not appropriate for this list because it's political. And I think this is a real problem in especially in our spiritual communities. Now, I am so proud that Centers for Spiritual Living, that our spiritual leader, Reverend Edward, is posting prayers about Black Lives Matter and racism. I mean, I just feel so proud that we are taking a stand on that, because to me it is not political at all. These are moral issues. These are ethical issues. And that's the piece that, if there's not understanding how these issues are moral, that and they're only being expressed on the political scene, then to me that's blocking us from moving forward. So if more spiritual people will speak to these issues from a moral perspective, an ethical perspective, that may help. I don't know. I don't have the power to make that happen, but I think it is happening, and I'm certainly speaking to it. My work, I think, is a lot still educating my own self and just getting involved in forums like this. I was in the Better Angels workshop a couple weeks ago where they talked about depolarizing your own thoughts, and wow, that was a real eye-opener for me, because I certainly have thoughts that are not practitioner thoughts about the other side. I mean, my best way of describing our president is calling him mentally ill. I mean, that is my compassionate way, because I don't want to see him as the way I could see him, as his that what he's doing is just it's unbelievable, and it just hurts my heart so deeply. I can't stand it. And there's days when I just can't even turn on the news because I'm not strong enough that day to take what might be out there. Okay, I'm complete.
Good to hear your voice, Jen.
Thank you.
Whew, I know, Etta, you had your name up. Mr. Cobb, you have your hands up, I should say. We're going to take Etta first, and then Mr. Cobb, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Lane.
My time?
No, Etta, you're muted, babe.
This is just really quick on the back, talking about economics. I'll never forget the day that the first time I became aware of the difference that economics makes. Really, I grew up in a very, my growing up was very difficult, but I didn't understand about money, and it's taken me years to understand. But I remember going to a bat mitzvah. One day I had to go to a bat mitzvah, and I sat there, and all the penny dropped for me, watching the training. And I knew this child and seeing the training that she went through at the age of what she was like 16, what they were expected to know, how they were expected to be responsible. And I was like, I went, oh my God. It was like, I didn't know anything about this. And I realized that if I did, my life would have been a little bit different. And that was years ago. And I'm so glad that we are having these conversations about the financial part of it, because it makes a real it does make an unbelievable difference when you understand how you're going to support, because you need money to help support life. And I didn't understand how those things went together at all. And that's just all I got to say about it right now.
Etta, thank you so very much. Mr. Cobb.
I just wanted to respond to Greg Linden. He and I have similar dreams. He dreams about being a philanthropist, so do I, but I haven't got any money at all. I am retired. Okay. But one of the things I wanted to point out was, Greg, do you know what do you think of the leverage of community colleges? I think community colleges are an answer, not the total answer, but one of the answers to economic equality. And there are a lot of them around, and youngsters can get a saleable education rather inexpensively. So I think giving scholarships to community colleges is an idea that I'd like to throw out to everyone as a possibility of a way you can change outcomes for students with whatever money you have. I think scholarships and supporting community colleges is something we all should think about, what money we have.
Greg, do you want to answer that real briefly? And then I'm just going to call on Ms. Hunt. We're getting short on time.
I do think, thank you, James. I do think focusing on education is really a huge step up. And I think money distributed and pushed towards education of all people, and especially those who have a disadvantage, is an excellent idea. It's one of my ideas I'm churning around as to how to make my money make a difference. Thanks, James.
Eugene, is it okay if I go to Ms. Hunt, and then I'd like to let you have a word back before I close it?
Yes.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Ms. Hunt.
Okay, economically, I agree with what's being said. But my mother, I grew up in a very impoverished area. My mother had 7 children, and each one of us, she forced us to go to school and get our education. Every single child has a degree in some field. Most of us were not able to get jobs in the fields that we had degrees in to make any money. So most of her children had to start businesses of their own in order to make money. One brother worked for NASA. You know, he didn't have a scholarship. He worked really hard, and because his IQ in that area was high, they took him on. But my other brothers in the areas that they had expertise in, they had to start businesses of their own in order to continue with their families and to make enough money with the knowledge that they went to school for and got their degrees in. So yes, giving scholarships and everything, but these companies and these places have to hire people with the skills and the education to do the jobs, not because of their color, but because of their education. That's my belief.
Thank you. Thank you. Eugene, I'd like you to just close out the conversation before I start babbling on, please.
So thank you very much, everyone, for being on here. For those who have expressed your thoughts and spoke up today, and for those who who didn't, your presence here is so necessary. And so we're going to continue with Race Talk, and so that we can continue to provide that platform for us to do exactly what we're doing. Number one, learning about the institutionalization of racism and white supremacy, and then what I like to say, raising up above that to find out, okay, so who am I to be in this, and then what is mine to do? And again, as I said earlier, as we continue to have these conversations coming together, I truly do believe that we all assist in this little thing called healing of America, even if it's in our own little community, which is absolutely attached to the larger, as Dr. Martin Luther King would say, the beloved community. Thank you for being here, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing you next week. Tell your friends, tell your family, join us. Lane.
Thank you so much, Eugene, and thank you, everyone. This has been a marvelous conversation. I wanted to just share something that Reverend Dr. Anderson put in the chat room, which kind of speaks to what you were saying, Eugene, about even if it's just in your own space. As with any health-related illness, the more each person works on their health, promote their health, speak up about it, the more it becomes the norm. And I think that is just a great way to finish this conversation. If we each take responsibility, as many folks here said today, for our own thinking and our own way of speaking and our own way of listening, that can make a huge impact in the world. So thank you, everyone. Making an impact, we were talking about, I know that several of you have talked about a couple of things. One is wanting to bring more people to this conversation, and another is wanting to begin conversations in your own communities. So one of the things that can help bring more people to this conversation is to go to YouTube and please like the videos that we've posted there of each of our conversations. Share them in social media or send the links out by email to your friends and invite them to this conversation. That's a good way to let them understand what we're talking about, what the flavor of the group is. But please like those, because that will help us get a little traction. The other is that Eugene and I are pleased and available to facilitate private groups. So if you would like to have some folks in either to your home or your Zoom group, and if you're not sure how to use Zoom, we can help you set it up. That we will facilitate conversations on whatever topic it is that you feel you want to talk about or that your group wants to talk about. So please let us know if that interests you. And I also wanted to say that several of you have been sending me additional resources, links for other groups, book studies, and so forth. Please continue to do that so that I can continue to disseminate those out. I too was at the Better Angels session because Jen sent it out, and it was really very, very good. And then Greg sent the 100 ways that you can take action against racism now. I hope some of you looked at that. I'm very excited, Eugene and I are very excited to be hosting a conversation next week with Dr. Sophie Charles. who is the Director of Executive Education and Training for the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, NOBLE, which is the largest association of minority law enforcement leaders focused on policing and public safety. So we would very much like you to be here next week. Please bring your friends. Now, Dr. Charles has asked that we come with specific questions about policing and law enforcement or anything in that area. She wants to really talk about the culture of policing as it fits into the political climate. It would be helpful if you sent us questions ahead of time so that we can send them to her and help her prepare. That way it will facilitate the conversation and make it a very pointed and beneficial conversation for everyone. So that would be extremely helpful if you did that. Again, I'll be sending out a short bio and the contact information where you can actually find out more about Dr. Charles and actually send that out to your folks as well. I will also be starting a book list. If anyone has suggestions for books, send those to me over the next couple of weeks. All right, there are a great many books to be had out there. I would love to continue this conversation because I just want to continue the conversation, but we can't do it. It's 1 o'clock. So folks, we just want to say thank you. We love you so much and we honor you, your journey. We are all part of this journey and we are so honored to be traveling this journey with you together. Eugene, would you like to say anything else before we say goodbye to these lovely people?
You know, let's just keep doing what we are all doing. Yeah, I paused because there was something that my brother Raymond, Dr. Raymond, put in the chat because there was some, I know we have to go. And let me just stop there. Have a great day, you guys.
Love you all. See you next time.
Welcome, first timers. Please come again. Please come again.
Yes,
We love you.
yes, yes, yes.
Bye now.
Bye.